I bought the Camry on a Tuesday. The guy selling it seemed normal enough. Mid-40s, thinning hair, nervous laugh. We met in the parking lot of a dying mall off Route 9, the kind of place where half the storefronts are empty and the food court smells like mildew. He'd listed it for $3,200, which was a steal for a 2015 with only 67,000 miles. I'd been saving for months, riding the bus to my warehouse job, watching my coworkers complain about gas prices while I calculated how much longer until I could afford 4 wheels and freedom. "She runs great," he said, patting the hood like it was a dog. Oil changed regular. New tires last year. I should have asked why he was selling. I should have asked a lot of things. But the price was right. The engine sounded smooth, and I was tired of waiting 40 minutes for a bus that came every hour. We did the paperwork in his car. He had the title ready, signed and notarized. He seemed eager to finish the transaction, kept checking his phone, glancing at the access road like he expected someone. When I handed him the cash, his hands shook as he counted it. Twice. "Trunk sticks sometimes," he said, jingling the keys before dropping them in my palm. "You gotta lift the handle and push down at the same time." Then he was gone, climbing into a Honda Accord that had been idling 3 spaces over, driven by someone I couldn't quite see through the tinted windows. I watched them pull away, feeling that small flutter of anxiety you get when you've just spent all your savings on something that's now entirely your problem. The car drove beautifully, smooth acceleration, cold AC, a sound system that actually worked. I felt like a king driving home, windows down, classic rock station crackling through the speakers. I even stopped at the grocery store, bought the name brand cereal for once, treated myself to a rotisserie chicken. The trunk opened fine when I loaded my bags. A little stiff maybe, but nothing a shot of WD-40 couldn't fix. That night I slept better than I had in months. The smell hit me first. It was 5:47 a.m., still dark outside, and I was running late. I'd snoozed my alarm 3 times and now had exactly 18 minutes to get to the gym, work out, shower, and make it to my 7 a.m. shift. I grabbed my gym bag, locked my apartment, and jogged down to the parking lot in my slides and sweatpants. The smell reached me when I was still 10 feet from the car. Sweet and rotten, like meat forgotten in a hot garage. My first thought was an animal. A cat or raccoon had crawled into the engine and died. It happened. My neighbor had dealt with the same thing last summer, but the smell was stronger near the trunk. I stood there in the pre-dawn darkness, keys in hand, trying to convince myself of the animal theory. Maybe something had gotten trapped in the wheel well. Maybe I'd driven over something yesterday and it was stuck to the undercarriage. The rational part of my brain offered explanation after explanation, each one more desperate than the last. The trunk stuck when I tried to open it. I lifted the handle and pushed down, just like the seller had said, and heard the mechanism click. The smell poured out like something physical, making me gag and stumble backward. I pulled my shirt over my nose and looked inside. The body was wrapped in a blue tarp, the industrial kind you get at hardware stores. It wasn't wrapped well. One arm had come loose, pale and stiff, fingers curled into a claw. The hand was small, delicate. A woman's hand, I thought, though I couldn't be sure. Didn't want to be sure. I slammed the trunk shut. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the keys. They clattered onto the asphalt, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet parking lot. I looked around, windows dark, no cars moving, no witnesses to the fact that I was standing next to a deceased body in a trunk I'd opened with my own hands, my fingerprints now all over the mechanism. I should call the police. That was the obvious thing, the only thing. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over 911. And then I thought about the questions they'd ask. Where did you get this car? How much did you pay? Cash? You met a stranger in a parking lot and gave him $3,000 in cash for a car with a body in the trunk? Did you check the trunk when you bought it? No? Why not? That seems careless. That seems suspicious. You drove it home, went shopping, slept a full night, and you're telling us you didn't smell anything? I thought about the fingerprints. Mine on the trunk, mine on the keys, mine all over the interior. I thought about the groceries I'd loaded, how I'd touched the tarp without realizing it, probably transferred DNA, probably left evidence that would be impossible to explain. I thought about the seller's shaking hands, the way he'd counted the cash twice, glancing at that access road, the Honda Accord with tinted windows, the notarized title that was probably fake, a name and signature that led nowhere. I'd been so stupid, so incredibly stupid. The sun was starting to rise, orange light creeping across the parking lot. I had 12 minutes before I needed to be at the gym. My shift started in an hour and 20 minutes. I'd been Employee of the Month twice this year. I had rent due on the first. I had a life that was simple and boring, and mine. I picked up the keys. The car started smoothly, engine purring like nothing was wrong, like there wasn't a corpse decomposing 10 inches behind my seat. I sat there, hands on the wheel, watching a jogger pass by on the sidewalk. She waved. I waved back. I could drive to the police station right now, walk in, explain everything, hope they believed me, hope the investigation didn't cost me my job, my apartment, my entire existence while they verified my story. Hope they found the seller, who'd probably used a burner phone and a fake ID, who was probably 3 states away by now. The steering wheel was warm under my palms. The gas tank was 3/4 full. I knew a place about 40 miles out, woods near where I'd gone camping as a kid, service roads that nobody used anymore. I put the car in reverse. As I backed out of the space, my headlights swept across my apartment building, across the window of my unit, where I could see the faint glow of the lamp I'd left on. My whole life was in that building. My whole small, careful life. I thought about the woman's hand, the pale fingers. Someone's daughter, sister, mother, friend. Someone who'd ended up in a tarp in a trunk, sold along with a car to an idiot who paid cash and didn't ask questions. I thought about the seller's face when he'd counted the money, the relief I'd mistaken for nervousness. I pulled onto the main road, east toward work, or west toward the woods. The choice felt enormous and impossibly small at the same time. The turn signal clicked in the silence. Right or left, evidence or accomplice, victim or criminal. All I can tell you is this: I never made it to work that day. I did everything right. That's what keeps me awake now, staring at my bedroom ceiling at 3 a.m., listening for sounds that shouldn't be there. I followed every guide, every tutorial. Factory reset. Software wipe. I even ran that military-grade deletion program 3 times. The laptop was clean. A blank slate, ready for someone else's documents and passwords and midnight browsing habits. The buyer seemed normal enough. His name was Derek. At least, that's what his Craigslist account said. We met at a Starbucks, public and safe, just like the internet advised. He was thin, pale, with wire-rimmed glasses that reflected the overhead lights, so I could never quite see his eyes. He tested the laptop, nodded, handed me cash. The whole transaction took maybe 10 minutes. "Thanks for this," he said, closing the lid carefully. "I've been looking for this exact model for a while." I should have asked why. I should have wondered why someone would spend weeks hunting for a 5-year-old laptop when newer, better ones were everywhere. But I was just happy to get rid of it, to have the cash in my wallet, to move on. The first message came 3 days later. "Hey man, quick question about the laptop. Do you still have the charger that goes with your coffee maker? The Keurig? I noticed you're missing it in your kitchen. I stared at my phone, reading it twice, 3 times. My kitchen. He knew about my kitchen. I typed back fast, fingers shaking slightly. Wrong number. And how would you know what's in my kitchen? The response was immediate. Sorry. Autocorrect. I meant the laptop charger. But seriously, found some interesting files on here. Thought you'd want them back. Intruder. My stomach dropped. There were no files. There couldn't be files. I'd wiped it. I'd checked. There's nothing on that laptop. I wiped it clean. Almost clean. You'd be surprised what persists, like that folder labeled insurance docs with your social security number. And those photos from your trip to Portland in 2019. The ones from the hotel. You look peaceful when you sleep. My hands went numb. Portland was a work trip. I'd stayed in a cheap motel, alone, exhausted from the conference. I'd taken a selfie before bed, something stupid to send to my girlfriend at the time, showing off the terrible floral bedspread. But I'd never sent it. Had I even kept it? I blocked his number immediately. Then I blocked his Craigslist account. Then I changed my phone number, my email password, everything I could think of. I spent 6 hours on my desktop, running scan after scan, finding nothing. Clean. Everything was clean. The first package arrived on a Tuesday. No return address. Just my name and apartment number printed on a plain brown label. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper like something precious. A photograph. Me asleep in my own bed, in my current apartment, the blue glow of my laptop screen illuminating my face. The angle was from my dresser, where my phone charges every night. Where my phone had been when this photo was taken. I called the police. They took a report, looked concerned, said they'd investigate. They asked if I had any enemies, any ex-girlfriends with a grudge. They didn't ask about the laptop. Why would they? I didn't tell them. It seemed insane, selling a laptop and having this happen. They'd think I was paranoid. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe this was coincidence. The second package came on Thursday. More photos. Me at the grocery store. Me at the gym. Me sitting in my car, waiting at a red light, picking my nose when I thought no one was watching. The photos were time-stamped. They went back 2 years. Some were clearly screenshots from security cameras, but others were taken from phones near me. In the backgrounds, I could see reflections in windows, shadows of the person holding the camera. He'd been there, following me, for years. I stopped going outside unless absolutely necessary. I covered my laptop camera with tape, my phone camera too. I factory reset my phone, my tablet, everything. I bought new devices, convinced myself I was starting fresh. Clean slate, just like the laptop. The emails started that weekend. They came from addresses that didn't exist, strings of numbers and letters that dissolved into error messages when I tried to reply. They all said the same thing, variations on a theme, you can't wipe me away. Factory reset doesn't reset us. I've been in your system longer than you know. And the worst one, the one that made me unplug everything and sit in the dark for 3 hours. I was there before the laptop. The laptop was just permission to stop hiding. I hired a cybersecurity expert. She was expensive, professional, thorough. She scanned everything, tore apart my network, examined every device. She found it in places I didn't know existed, nested in my router firmware, embedded in my smart TV, hiding in the cloud backups of backups that I'd forgotten existed. Spyware. RATS. Remote access Trojans. Keyloggers recording every password, every message, every private thought I'd typed and deleted before sending. How long? I asked. She looked at the code, the timestamps, the architecture. 3, maybe 4 years. This is sophisticated, professional grade. Someone's been watching everything. Can you remove it? I can remove what I found. But if he's this good... She trailed off, and I understood. He could be anywhere, in anything. The smart doorbell, the fitness tracker I wore to bed, the Bluetooth speaker in my bathroom. I thought about going to the police again, but what would I say? That I'd been hacked? They'd tell me to change my passwords, that someone was watching me. They'd ask for proof, and when I showed them the photos, they'd ask why I hadn't been more careful online. The final message came last night. An email from my own address, sent to myself. Check Craigslist. Personal section. Posted 2 hours ago. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I found it in seconds. He'd made it easy to find. Used body. Slightly broken. Free to good home. The description was thorough. My height, my weight, my medical history that I'd stupidly stored in a password-protected document that wasn't protected enough. My daily routine, my habits, my fears, everything. A complete manual for being me. And at the bottom, my home address and the sentence. Currently occupied, but working on eviction. The views counter was at 847. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I've called the police again. They're sending someone in the morning. I've locked every door, every window. I've checked them twice, 3 times. My phone is off. My laptop is off. I'm writing this on paper, something he can't reach through the screen. But I can hear something, a sound like typing, coming from the closet where I stored the old laptop box, the receipt, the reminder that I'd done this to myself. The sound stops, then starts again. Stop. Start. Like someone's learning my rhythm. Like someone's practicing being me. The doorbell camera just sent a notification to my phone, which is off, lying on the table. Screen dark and dead. But I can still hear it buzzing. And I can hear footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Patient. Measured. The sound of someone who's waited years and doesn't mind waiting a little longer. The listing on Craigslist updated 5 minutes ago. I checked one last time. I had to know. The status changed from available to sale pending. Someone made an offer, and Derek, or whoever he really is, just accepted. I should have trusted my gut the first time I saw Aaron smile. It wasn't that the smile was menacing or fake, quite the opposite. It was perfectly pleasant, the kind you'd see on a bank teller or a grocery store clerk. That was the problem. Nobody smiles that generically when they're meeting their new roommate for the first time. Nobody is that polite, that agreeable, that utterly forgettable. But I needed the money. My graphic design work had dried up, and the rent on my 2-bedroom apartment in the city wasn't going to pay itself. So when Aaron responded to my Craigslist ad within an hour, complete with references and first month's rent ready to go, I ignored that nagging feeling and handed him the spare key. "Thank you so much, Camille," he'd said, shaking my hand with just the right amount of pressure. "I promise you won't even know I'm here." He was right about that. Almost too right. Aaron was a ghost. He left for work before I woke up and returned after I'd gone to bed. His door stayed closed. No music, no TV, no sounds of living at all. When we crossed paths in the kitchen, maybe twice a week, he'd nod, exchange pleasantries about the weather, and disappear back into his room like vapor. After 2 weeks, I started to relax. I'd lucked out with the perfect roommate, quiet, clean, and invisible. Then the food started disappearing. Small things at first. A container of leftover pad thai I'd been saving, half a loaf of bread. I figured maybe I'd eaten them and forgotten. Stress does strange things to memory. But when an entire rotisserie chicken vanished overnight, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I left a passive-aggressive note on the fridge. Please don't eat my food without asking. The next morning I found it still there, untouched, but the orange juice I'd bought the day before was gone. Hey, Aaron? I knocked on his door that evening. No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. Aaron, we need to talk about the food situation. Nothing. But I could swear I heard breathing on the other side. The scratching started a few nights later. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it. A soft rhythmic scraping sound coming from inside the walls. I sat up, straining to listen. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then silence. Just as I convinced myself it was pipes or the building settling, it started again. Closer this time, right above my headboard. I didn't sleep that night. The smell came next, a sour, musty odor that seemed to seep from the air vents. I checked for mold, called the super, who found nothing. But every few days the smell would return, strongest in my bedroom and the hallway between our rooms. Like someone who hadn't showered in weeks was standing just out of sight. I started feeling watched. You know that prickly sensation on the back of your neck when someone's staring at you? I felt it constantly in my own home, when I cooked dinner, when I got out of the shower, when I changed clothes in my bedroom. I began checking the windows obsessively, convinced someone was looking in from the fire escape, but there was never anyone there. Are you okay? My friend Jessica asked over coffee. You look exhausted. It's the new roommate, I said, then paused. Actually, I don't know if it is him. I never see him anymore, but weird stuff keeps happening. Like what? I told her everything. The food, the sounds, the smell. How I'd started finding my bedroom door ajar in the mornings, even though I'd locked it the night before. How sometimes my things were just slightly out of place. My hairbrush moved. My laptop shifted an inch. My underwear drawer not quite closed all the way. Jessica's face went pale. Camille, you need to confront him. Today. I went home and pounded on Aaron's door. Aaron, open up. We need to talk right now. Silence. I grabbed my phone and called the number from his rental application. It rang once and went to a generic voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. My hands were shaking as I pulled up my messages from when we'd first connected. There was his response to my ad, our brief exchange about move-in details. I scrolled up to see the original conversation. The messages were gone. The entire thread before, 3 months ago, had vanished. 3 months ago. Aaron had only moved in 6 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. I went to the building management office. I need to verify something about my roommate, I told Clara, the building manager. Aaron Chen, Unit 407. She frowned and typed on her computer. There's no Aaron Chen registered in 407. Just you. That's impossible. He moved in October 15th. I have his application. Honey, I process all rental agreements. You've been the sole tenant since you moved in last year. I couldn't breathe. Then who the hell is living in my apartment? That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I think you should see this. Attached was a screenshot of a Craigslist post. My face stared back at me. My address. But it wasn't my post. The text read, "Room available immediately. Quiet female roommate. Privacy respected." I hadn't written that. I hadn't posted my photo. I ran back to my apartment, Clara calling after me. I burst through the door and went straight to Aaron's room, using the master key Clara had given me. The room was empty. Completely empty. No bed, no clothes. No sign anyone had ever lived there. Just dust and the faint smell of something rotten. But on the floor, in the corner, I saw it. A small dark opening in the wall, behind where a dresser might have been. The scratching sound suddenly made horrible sense. I called 911 with trembling fingers. The police found the crawl space within 10 minutes. It led to the attic and connected to several other units in the building. Inside, they found a sleeping bag, protein bar wrappers, empty water bottles, a laptop, and a camera. A tiny camera on a flexible mount, positioned to feed through a hole that pointed directly at my bed. On the laptop, there were hundreds of photos. Me sleeping, me changing, me eating, working, living my life. Folders full of them, meticulously organized by date. And there were files, lists of names and addresses, other Craigslist posts, other women. Detective Morrison's face was grim when she showed me the final folder. We found similar setups in 4 other buildings in the city. All apartments where single women posted roommate ads. He'd impersonate previous tenants who'd already moved out, get keys made, establish himself. Then he'd disappear, but never actually leave. "Where is he now?" I whispered. "We're searching." "But Camille, you need to see this." She opened a document titled Future Roommates. It was a spreadsheet, dozens of names, dozens of addresses, photos attached, screenshots from social media, dating apps, rental listings. My name was on line 47. I was number 47. They caught him 3 days later, trying to move into apartment 62, a studio in Brooklyn, where a woman named Sophie had just posted a Craigslist ad for a roommate. When they searched him, he had a collection of keys, 73 keys to apartments all over the city, some to places he'd already infiltrated, some to places he was planning to visit. In his storage unit, they found more cameras, more lists, more sleeping bags, and a journal, page after page describing his roommates. What we ate when we slept, what we wore to bed. His favorite entries were the ones where he detailed how close he'd gotten without us knowing, standing next to our beds in the dark, touching our hair while we slept, going through our things. There was an entry about me, about how I'd been the most paranoid one yet, but also the most fun to watch unravel. I moved out the next day. I stayed with Jessica for 2 months before I could even think about getting my own place again. When I finally did, I chose a building with cameras everywhere, new construction with no attics or crawl spaces. I got 3 deadbolts installed. I check every wall, every vent, every corner. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear scratching. I know it's not real. The therapist says it's PTSD, that my brain is stuck in hypervigilance mode. But I also know that before all this, I would have said it was impossible for someone to live in my walls. I would have said Aaron seemed perfectly nice. And I would have been wrong.